So many companies have just unapologetically given up on doing their jobs lately, and it's driving me crazy. ComEd, the only provider of electricity in this area, decided to change our account numbers. After that, a large number of users could not access their online accounts. So every month I've had to call in to get my account statement or do anything. As you can imagine, with all of this going on, there's super long hold times. I've asked for this to be fixed. I've tried a million things. I've put in tech support tickets. They've told me to call back and have my account deleted, which I did a million times, and it didn't fix it. And the woman on the line was like, oh, just wait a few hours. It'll probably start working. I'm like, what are you basing that on? She's like, oh, well, it will probably just start working. Why? Of course it didn't. And I said, well, can you escalate this? I really need my account to work. And she's like, well, why? I can tell you your total balance. And I was like, well, I need my account statement. And she's like, why do you need that if you have your account total? And I was like, okay, this is a commercial account. Come tax time, the IRS is not going to accept that someone named Jane over the phone on some random date told me what my account balance was. I think that they're going to want the account statement, as is my accountant. So she said she'd put in a ticket for me and someone would call me. Of course they didn't. Next month I had to call back, go through all of this again. When I mentioned that I never got a call back, I was told it was because they don't have any sort of solution. That this is apparently a huge issue. Even when they do fix it for some of these accounts, it just keeps happening and the users get locked out again. So apparently a large portion of their users have had no access to their electricity accounts for months. And they have absolutely no idea how or when it's going to be fixed. And instead of communicating this to anyone or being proactive about any sort of solution, like, hey, maybe for these users that are being impacted, we'll turn on paper statements so at least they get statements regularly during this time period, or any sort of thing, they've been radio silent. They're not returning phone calls. They're not calling back out any sort of email communicating what's going on. Similarly, God forbid that you need a prescription, is just a nightmare. I have sometimes my prescription sent to Walgreens, and a few months ago, it wasn't going through. It kept popping out of, I checked the online account and it was showing that it was no longer being processed. I tried calling, of course they never answer. So I went over to Walgreens and I was like, hey, I've submitted this prescription multiple times, and every time it just comes out and shows that it's no longer in process. And they pull it up and they're like, oh yeah, that's because your insurance doesn't cover it for another few weeks. So we assumed that you wouldn't want it because you'd have to pay for it. And I was like, well, how much is it? And they look and they're like, oh, it's $14. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna pay for that, given that it's a pretty critical medication that I need. And I was like, why wouldn't you just call and ask me rather than just assuming that I didn't want it and pulling it out repeatedly, even though I kept submitting the request to have this filled. So I asked them to not do that anymore and put a note on my file. This has happened every month since, and every month, I cannot get this filled. Also, other prescriptions, they just can't seem to manage to fill. There's all these shortages. I had one prescription that I've been trying to track down. I finally found it at one pharmacy. I had it sent to that pharmacy, but then they couldn't figure it out because I don't have insurance coverage for it, which I explained to them. I understand I don't have insurance coverage. Please process it anyway. There's a savings card and I'm gonna pay the rest out of pocket. They're like, oh, but it's really expensive. We know you don't want that. No, I do. I need this medication and I'm lucky enough that I can afford to pay for it. Thank goodness. I understand not everyone is lucky enough to be able to do that, but I need this medication. It's very important. Continuously stop processing it. Then they just deleted the prescription altogether. And when I called to find out what the problem was, they said, oh, it's been deleted. Why don't you call the store that it was transferred from? And I said, well, why would I call them if it was deleted while it was at your store? And they're like, well, just call them and see if they can retransfer it. I said, but they don't have it anymore. It was with your store and you're showing that it was deleted at your store. I'm like, can you undelete it or whatever? And they're like, no, just call your doctor and get a new prescription. I don't want to call my doctor's office, have another office visit, whatever, to get this prescription rewritten. And it's hard to get a hold of a doctor's office. I have another prescription that I'm trying to get filled, which is also very hard, and they're having some issue processing it. They're having some sort of technical issue. They've been having a technical issue for a couple of weeks and they can't figure out how to process it. And I was like, okay, well, can we escalate this? Can you call technical support? Can you go up the chain, figure out something? Because I really need this medicine. They're like, oh, we have whatever. And she's like, well, I'll call you back. I'll call you back once we get this figured out. Okay, of course, no one ever calls me back. So I call again this morning and I talked to the actual pharmacist and I was like, do you have this medicine in stock? He's like, oh yeah, I I don't know why it was a process. I'll get it ready for you. I'll call you back no later than 11:30. He doesn't call, but I get an email saying like, your prescription's ready, please come pick it up. Great. So I go to pick it up. I go through the drive-through for the pickup. The woman at the window is like, what are you here? We don't have any prescriptions for you. It had been like pulled out again. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, why are you here? And I was like, I got an email saying that my prescription was ready to come pick it up. She's like, well, why would you think that you should come pick it up? I'm sorry, what? Like, the email said my prescription was ready, come pick it up. Like, what? Oh, do I have my prescription? No. And like the amount of hours that I spend trying to complete basic tasks, like get my medication, get an electricity bill. I normally try to stay positive, but I'm kind of like out of patience today. I'm afraid we're all screwed at this point.